going to get tea. It's Stephanie White. She has had enough of what she has seen from the officials here today. Understandable frustration from Stephanie White.
Couple of possessions in a row where the Boston got the fouls. I thought the first one should have been on Howard. And then here, as Petty's in there, Hillman kind of tosses her to the side a little bit, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back there.
Game 1 between the Indiana Fever and the Atlanta Dream was a storm from the start. 6 key players sidelined, the roster already hanging by a thread, and then the referees made it feel like the deck was stacked even higher. Every whistle, every no-call, pushed frustration closer to the breaking point until head coach Stephanie White finally snapped, earning a technical for saying out loud what every fan watching was already screaming at their screens. Was it just awful luck, or something that looked a whole lot more like sabotage in the biggest moment of their season? The aftermath has fans furious, players livid, and the league buzzing with one burning question. Did the Fever just get robbed?
Players they have. So Caitlin Clark, Chloe Bibby right there on the bench. But then you have Sophie Cunningham, Sid Colson, Ari McDonald, all actually having to sit separate from the bench. You also have Damiris Duntis.
Imagine walking into the playoffs already gutted. Half your rotation wiped out before the ball even tips. That was the Indiana Fever's nightmare. Caitlin Clark's season ended with a groin injury. Chloe Bibby's knee took her down. Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Colson were both lost to knee issues. Ari McDonald was sidelined with a foot problem. And less than 24 hours before Game 1, Damiris Dantas was thrown into concussion protocol. 6 players, 6 rotation pieces gone. And yet the Fever were still expected to step on the floor against a fully loaded Atlanta Dream roster just waiting to pounce.
We got the injured reserves here with you guys, which last month, they just weren't able to travel. What does that mean to you specifically, just having them there?
Yeah, I was super excited. I think just looking at the injured squad in itself, they just have a lot of knowledge. And so for us, just being able to listen to them, taking what they see, because obviously just them watching is going to be a different view than us on that court. And so super, super happy to have them with us.
How is that even fair to the players or the fans? Indiana spent the entire season fighting through this exact kind of punishment just to claw their way into the 6th seed. Every week it was lineups patched together like a puzzle missing half the pieces, and every week they somehow found a way to survive. But instead of being rewarded with a clean slate and a chance to prove themselves in the playoffs, they rolled into Atlanta with more names on the inactive list than some teams even have on their bench. A gut punch that felt less like bad luck and more like cruel sabotage.
Obviously, the injured players, they haven't been able to travel, some of them, but most of them are here now. Just how do they help kind of from a culture-wise and with just bringing some perspective to you guys?
Yeah, we miss them every day on the court. So to be able to have them we had our plane, front of our plane, normally we have empty seats. It was filled on the way here. So, they bring energy, they bring light, they bring their vocal leaders, all of them. So to have them on this trip is huge. And I don't know how we're going to fit everyone on the bench. It's not that long. It's been packed recently. So I'm excited to see how we figure that out, but it'll be great to have them back with us.
And speaking of the bench, it was a scene straight out of a comedy sketch if it wasn't so tragic. The Fever made sure all 16 players traveled, healthy or not, a show of unity that also doubled as a painful reminder of just how gutted their roster really was. There weren't even enough seats to go around. The front row filled so quickly that injured players in hoodies and warm-ups were pushed into a makeshift second row, sitting behind their own teammates like they were waiting to board a delayed flight. That's when you know you've hit the injury lottery, when your sideline looks more like an overflow section than a playoff bench.
They're finally able to travel from a medical standpoint as well. So, I think having the whole group here, having those guys here gives us a little bit of a boost emotionally. And then having their perspective. You're talking about 3 point guards that are sitting on the sideline that can talk to our team in huddles, that can talk to our team, throughout the course of dead balls or when they come on and off the floor.
This is where context matters. Look at the other playoff squads. They've got second options ready, reliable pieces they can rotate in when stars hit foul trouble or need a breather. Indiana didn't have that luxury. They were running lineups built on whoever was still standing, patching holes with tape, grit, and pure willpower. Every possession felt like a gamble, every substitution like a Hail Mary. And yet, even with bodies dropping left and right, this team clawed its way into the postseason for the second straight year. That's not luck, that's resilience on full display. The kind that deserves respect, not punishment.
Come on, guys. This is my new team, the medical staff.
Oh, yeah.
Sophie Cunningham might have summed it up best without even trying. Stuck in knee rehab, she joked she's basically part of the medical staff now, a starter-turned-cheerleader cracking jokes to mask the sting of being sidelined. That's the Fever all season, finding ways to smile through the pain, refusing to fold no matter how unfair the circumstances. And the wildest part? The injuries didn't stop them from coming out of the gate swinging in Game 1. They stunned Atlanta early, built a lead, and looked too stubborn to even notice their disadvantages. But just when it seemed like the Fever had silenced every doubt, the referees made sure the story changed, inserting themselves at the worst possible moment and tilting the game's direction completely.
What the referees did, and I know why Stephanie White got a technical foul. Any coach that had to watch their team work so hard all season long, played through every single injuries, and the reason why they had so many injuries is because of these referees.
Every playoff game has its swings, but when whistles start cutting against you, the slope gets steeper by the possession. That's exactly what happened after Indiana's hot start. The Fever were up 15-6, riding Kelsey Mitchell's shot-making and Aaliyah Boston's dominance inside, when suddenly the game stopped being about basketball and started being about officiating. Ticky-tack fouls on Indiana defenders, while Atlanta's physicality went unchecked. Boston whistled on back-to-back possessions for contact that looked identical to what the Dream were getting away with. A Mitchell drive hacked at the rim? No call. On the other end, a brush foul on Rhyne Howard sends her to the line. The rhythm Indiana built evaporated, the crowd fed off the whistles, and the lead slipped away possession by possession. It wasn't just bad luck, it felt like the officials themselves tilted the scales right when the Fever proved they could hang.
Rhyne Howard just falls down, but it's a foul. Like, this is ridiculous. Look at this, Kelsey Mitchell. They don't even let the Fever play defense because she's associated with Caitlin Clark. Look at this one. Another foul where nobody touched him. So they lost the timeout and they lost their challenges for the game because the referees can't do their job.
That rhythm-killing cycle broke Indiana's momentum before they could even settle in. Every time the Fever clawed for a stop, a whistle bailed Atlanta out. Every time a clean contest shut down a drive, the Dream walked to the line instead. The scoreboard didn't just shift because of buckets, it shifted because Indiana's defense wasn't being allowed to matter. By the second quarter, you could see it on their faces. Players throwing up their hands in disbelief, Stephanie White barking from the sideline, even the bench erupting after another phantom foul. What should have been a gritty underdog story, a battered Fever squad proving they could swing with a fully loaded Dream, turned into a test of how much frustration they could stomach before the game slipped away.
The referees took it over. Look at this. Everybody saw this. Lexi Hall didn't touch her, but they had to waste their first challenge on this play. Here we go. Look at this. She gets elbowed in the face, and they call a foul on Brianna Turner. And then Lexi Hall turns around to go back on defense, but she gets charged for a foul, and they wanted to upgrade it, reviewed it.
By halftime, it wasn't just the scoreboard tilting. It was the sense that Indiana was fighting two battles at once, Atlanta's talent and the refs' whistles. Burning both challenges before the break told the story. White had the receipts, literal replay evidence that her players were being punished for clean defense, but the system only gave her so many lifelines. Once those were gone, the Fever were exposed to whatever came next. Lexi Hull sat with foul trouble she didn't earn, rotations collapsed earlier than planned, and suddenly Atlanta had room to breathe. The crowd fed off every whistle, momentum flipped, and Indiana's dream start was erased not by execution, but by officiating that felt stacked against them.
Look at this. Boston gets elbowed in the face by Brittany Griner. Do you think they called it? No. And look at this. Lexi Hall did not touch her. Didn't even touch her. And she gets free throws. Here we go. Kelsey Mitchell touched her hip lightly.
Meanwhile, Atlanta's physicality was allowed to run unchecked, and the contrast was glaring. Fans saw Brianna Jones throw an elbow into Brianna Turner and Brittany Griner shove Aaliyah Boston on post-ups with no whistle in sight, while the slightest bump from Indiana drew an instant call, creating a brand of inconsistency that turned every possession into a coin flip, and that double standard didn't just shift the scoreboard. It cut into Indiana's composure, their confidence, and their rhythm. Because how do you play your game when the rules aren't the same on both sides?
Lexi Hall gets thrown out of bounds. No foul, right? Remember that play, okay? Boston, foul. But look at this. So she goes for the ball, and then they call a foul on Lexi Hall. Look at, she says, wow.
By the fourth quarter, the frustration finally boiled over, and Stephanie White, who had spent the entire night watching her battered roster fight through whistles that made no sense, erupted after a sequence where Ryan Howard clearly grabbed Shaw Petty without a call, only for the officials to punish White instead by slapping her with a technical foul. A moment that perfectly captured the imbalance of the game and the raw emotion of a coach forced to say out loud what every Fever fan was already screaming at their TV, that Indiana wasn't just battling Atlanta, they were battling the referees too.
Well, Lexi, talk about the physicality of this game and being able, knowing it's the playoff playing in such a physical game like today.
Yeah, I mean, I think we knew coming in it's playoffs, it's going to be physical, and we're going to have to learn how to play with that, especially this team is inherently a physical team. So for us, knowing that's the case and being able to respond, I think there's things that we're able to watch and film on how to handle that better, not letting the refs determine, how that physically is impacting us, but just continuing to play through that. It's definitely something we're going to have to work on and watch film and get better at, but that's part of playoffs, and that's part of the thing that we're going to have to get better at moving forward in this series.
Odyssey Sims got whistled not long after for diving on a loose ball. A pure hustle play that should have fired up the Fever, not penalized them. And the arena erupted in chaos as the bench looked rattled, with even Caitlin Clark sidelined in street clothes, stepping in to calm down her own head coach as Stephanie White teetered on the edge of boiling over. A surreal image of the injured sophomore steadying the leader of the sideline, Atlanta. Unfazed, turned the storm into fuel, ripping off a third quarter run that pushed the game out of reach. And when it was over, the headlines weren't about Indiana's grit or their stars, but about the whistles that overshadowed the night, leaving fans to ask the uncomfortable question. Did the Fever lose to the Dream, or to the officials? Yet through every shove, foul, and call that broke against them, the short-handed roster never stopped swinging. And that defiance might be the most important part of the story.
They didn't stop either. You'd think after 20 of them, look at this. So that's a foul, right? But watch when the Fever do it 2 times in a row, same exact thing. But it's not a foul when the Fever drive. Look at this. It's not a foul when the Fever get hit in the air, but the Dream get free throws. Same exact plays. Look at this one. What are you supposed to do? Just roll out the red carpet and give him a layup? She is not fouling her. They give her a 3-point play for putting her hands up.
With everything stacked against them, Indiana's definition of success couldn't be measured by the scoreboard alone, but by the fight they showed. And nobody embodied that more than Kelsey Mitchell, who lit up the floor with a playoff career-high 27 points on nearly 50% shooting, calmly draining free throws and refusing to let the offense collapse, adding 4 assists and even a block in a performance that screamed leadership. Every time the Dream looked ready to pull away, Mitchell clawed the Fever back into striking distance, proving that even with half the roster sidelined and the whistles tilting the court, Indiana's heart still beat through her, setting the tone for a series where pride might matter as much as wins.
Atlanta's had a few of those last few possessions. Mitchell, catch, fire, and hit from 3. What a start. Rebound hits the floor. Hull keeps it alive for Indiana. Mitchell using the screen, dancing around Griner, and able to squeeze it in off window.
But as dazzling as Mitchell's night was, the void left by Caitlin Clark hung over everything. Without her gravity stretching defenses out to 25 feet, Atlanta collapsed inward, clogging lanes and daring Indiana's role players to shoot. That suffocating defense turned the paint into a war zone for Aaliyah Boston, who spent much of the night wrestling double teams while trying to dodge the foul trouble that stalked her. Even so, Boston willed her way to 12 rebounds, each one a small victory against the odds, anchoring the Fever's defense and giving them second chances they had no business earning. Her offensive line was modest, just 8 points on limited touches, but it wasn't for lack of fight. Every trip down the floor was a brawl, yet she never relented, her sheer effort keeping Indiana in striking distance longer than anyone expected.
And another chance here for Indiana.
So much length, and it's obvious on the defensive end for Atlanta.
Boston just kind of pushed it up and in. Guarded by Howard. They slide it into Boston, center of the lane, turning, it's finishing. Aaliyah Boston, beautiful move.
Lexi Hull poured out everything she had, even if the numbers didn't shout it. 9 points may not sparkle on a playoff line, but in a game this ugly, every bucket carried weight. She nailed one of Indiana's rare threes on a night when the rim felt sealed shut, and she never stopped grinding on the other end, chasing Atlanta's guards around endless screens, diving into scrums for loose balls, and injecting the kind of relentless energy that doesn't always show up on paper but changes the pulse of a team. Even when her shot betrayed her, Hull refused to disappear, proving once again that her value comes from effort, toughness, and the willingness to do the dirty work others shy away from.
Carl Semesco emphasized first just how well she's been playing down the stretch. The efficiency has gotten much better since the second week of August, averaging nearly 20 points a game since then. As Hull 40-33, Atlanta in front. These teams split their 4 regular season meetings as Hull knocks down the 3. Hull gets a step and finishes off the window.
Meanwhile, Atlanta kept sending fresh legs at Indiana like waves crashing ashore. Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard both poured in 20. Naz Hillman added a crucial 16 off the bench, and Brittany Griner's sheer presence in the post warped the defense, opening lanes for everyone else. The difference couldn't have been starker. Atlanta had the luxury of rotating weapons, while Indiana was just hoping their stars could stay upright as the minutes piled up. The Fever shot under 35% from the floor, and every time they missed, the Dream were there to scoop up the rebound and reset. Slowly but surely, that gap stretched wider, not because Indiana quit, but because their bodies and their depth betrayed them.
Mitchell gives it up beautifully. Boston lays it in.
The number of screens that Aaliyah Boston set on that possession, her stagger, pin down here. She's going to come up and set another on-ball screen, turn, re-screen action, and then finally rolls to the basket.
And yet, the most impressive takeaway wasn't found in the box score. It was in the refusal to fold. Indiana played through every whistle, every injury, every disadvantage, right up until the final buzzer. Their chance to change the story didn't die in Atlanta. It just shifted to Indianapolis. Game 2 isn't just another matchup. It's the Fever's first home playoff game since 2016. That history alone breathes belief into this group. Now the question isn't whether Indiana has enough stars left to suit up. It's whether their home crowd can ignite something bigger, fueling the kind of season-defining win that rewrites everything.
I mean, we're competing against everyone. We're in every single game, and I think at the end of the day, we've seen in moments when we're not doing well or games that we've lost, it's really things that we can control. So making sure that we're locked in on all of those things and tidying up those little things, because if we can put together 40 minutes, we feel like we can beat anybody in the league. So we're excited about the opportunity. We're excited that the playoffs is finally here. And now, it's not about what our record was. It wasn't about teams we beat or who we didn't beat during the regular season. It's about Atlanta. It's about this game on Sunday. So that's all we're focused on, and we're really excited about the opportunity.
Picture this: the Indiana Fever walking back into Gainbridge Fieldhouse for their first home playoff game since 2016. Nearly a decade of waiting, of frustration, of rebuilding, all colliding with a season that's tested them more than any other. 6 players sidelined, rotations patched together, and still somehow, they've clawed their way here. Now, with their season hanging by a thread, they step onto their own floor knowing it's more than just survival. For fans, this isn't simply basketball. It's a chance to prove that playoff hoops in Indiana still carry weight, still command respect, and still echo with a history the league can't overlook. That hunger, packed into every seat of Gainbridge, is going to be impossible to ignore.
I think we're just really excited about it. I think last year our fans were robbed of getting to be part of the playoff experience. Watching the Pacers in playoff, the fans really do show out, and Gainbridge is loud and crazy and electric. And so to be able to host a game there and be able to bring what they've, how they've supported us so long, be able to give this to them and have a really fun one, I think we're really excited about it. And I love this new format.
The setup couldn't be more dramatic. This isn't just another game. It's Indiana's last shot to extend their season, and they're doing it still down the same 6 players who gutted their lineup in Atlanta. Caitlin Clark sidelined, Sophie Cunningham, Sydney Colson, Ari McDonald, Chloe Bibby all out, and Dyrus Dantas still stuck in concussion protocol. That leaves a roster stretched to its limits against a dream squad that already showed the blueprint in Game 1. Clog the paint, erase spacing, and force hurry jumpers until the Fever run dry. 2-4-15 from deep won't cut it again, and Stephanie White knows it. She was blunt: the only way through is ball movement, quick decisions, sharp passing, and no wasted trips. Because Atlanta's size and length aren't shrinking just because the series shifted to Gainbridge.
I know that you guys are focused on the game tomorrow, but just with the change in playoff format and knowing that you guys are going to have an opportunity to play at home, does it feel differently this year at all? Even though, again, like, you have to get through tomorrow first.
It doesn't feel differently for me. I mean, because I've been in all the formats, being a player and a coach, I don't know if it feels differently for them. I'm happy for our fans, that they get an opportunity to see the team in the playoffs. I remember a year ago in Connecticut, it was like, thank God we didn't have to go back to Indiana. So I'm thankful for our fans that they're going to have this opportunity.
The burden on Kelsey Mitchell is heavy, but it cannot just be hers to carry. Her 27 points in Game 1 proved she's capable of sparking an offense on her own, yet if no second scorer emerges, Atlanta will collapse on her again, suffocating her driving lanes and forcing Indiana into desperation shots. Aaliyah Boston will keep battling inside, Lexi Hull will keep fighting for every loose ball, but someone else, whether it's Brianna Turner, Melissa Smith, Grace Berger, or even veteran Bria Hartley, has to rise as a reliable option, because one player cannot outscore a roster stacked with depth. That's where the crowd becomes part of the equation. 17,000 fans may not be able to guard Rhyne Howard or box out Brittany Griner, but their energy can make every Fever run feel like a tidal wave, every defensive stop sting deeper, and every dream possession a little more uncomfortable. This night inside Gainbridge isn't just about survival, it's about proving this franchise can take a heavy punch, stand tall at home, and start building the momentum toward the future that everyone in Indiana has been waiting for. Win or lose, this moment will define how the 2025 Fever are remembered.
Kelsey, given the playoff format change, you guys being able to actually host a postseason game for the first time in your career in Indiana, how much do you expect that to help you guys, to give you momentum, and how just personally excited are you for that?
Personally excited. I'll let you know when I get there. But I think it gives ourselves a chance to stay in a hunt of things we really trying to figure out, a way to come back here whenever we play. We would like to play again. So you're gonna have to take the necessary steps to be at your best. But I would like to think that being back at home can kind of give us a sense of comfort. So hopefully we can use it for what it's worth and not take it for granted.
This series isn't just about wins and losses. It's about survival. The Fever have been battered by injuries all year, robbed of momentum by game-changing whistles, and yet somehow, they're still standing and ready to fight. Game 2 in Indianapolis isn't just another playoff matchup, it's the first at Gainbridge since 2016, and it carries the weight of an entire season. Everything rides on it. Fever fans will have to bring every ounce of energy, because this is the moment that could decide how the story ends. One game can still flip the narrative completely. So what do you think? Were the Fever robbed by the refs in Game 1? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next update. And if you're ready for more, click the video on your screen. We'll see you.